Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity, and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose. All right. Well, welcome, Dr. Adeyinka-Skold, to Identity Unboxed. We are so grateful to have you on. You are currently an assistant professor at Loyola Marymount University, and we are really looking forward today to talking about dating in the digital age and Black in the Ivy League. And just a little background for our listeners, you are an assistant professor of sociology at Loyola Marymount University, as I mentioned. You earned your sociology doctoral degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Your research focuses on how the processes of relationship formation in the United States reveals racism, sexism, and heteroarchy. Your work has been published in academic forums such as the DuBois Review in Sociology of Race and Ethnicity. Your work has also sparked the interest of non-academic venues and popular media figures interested in Black women's experiences. You've also entered the conversation with audiences in notable ways. Your research has focused on dating in the digital age and debuted in the Philadelphia Inquirer, the city's largest newspaper, which is how I discovered you. And you've also been featured as a guest on the Laverne Show in Therapy for Black Girls podcast. Also want to shout out the podcast you did with Laverne Cox. It was absolutely fabulous and so revelatory, just about your experience and how you got into your research. And so we're really looking forward to this conversation. And our first question for you is, can you take us back to the beginning of your professional journey as an undergrad at Princeton University and how you began to understand your place as a Black woman in an Ivy League institution? And then additionally, what did this experience evoke in you as you charted your course into academia?
Yes, I want to say before I get started, thank you, Tiana and Brad, for having me on. This is such a great opportunity, and I'm really grateful to get to spend some time with you today. Um, so let's see. Going back to my time at Princeton. So I think my time at Princeton really unlocked for me that I was Black, which sounds pretty crazy, but I'm an immigrant. So I immigrated to the States when I was 7.5 years old. I was born in Nigeria. And up until that point, my family had sort of been, family are the ones that kind of shape our identity for us, especially our racial and our cultural identity. So back in the day, I don't know if Nigerian parents are still doing this. I hope they're not. But there was this idea that like you are not African American, right? You are different from African Americans. Ya Agassi deals with this in her book called Homecoming. And so this is idea that like my identity was separate from African Americans. And thankfully, Princeton completely disabused me of that. I started my time there at the Freshman Summer Institute, FSI, and that's where I got to meet other Black people that were smart. And it's not that like I didn't have those folks in high school. It's just that I felt like I was on my own. Um, but it was just like, oh, this is so cool. There are other Black people that are really smart, really kind, really generous. And then I took a sociology class with Mario Small, Dr. Mario Small, and things just became really depressing, but also with alarming I got alarming clarity about my own Blackness and really started to understand, linked fate or Ubuntu. We kind of call it different words. This idea that, I am because you are, specifically when we're talking about Black people. And so for me, that was the game changer. Basically understanding that like I was part of a much larger community, not just the Nigerian community, but this Black global community. It's also when changed my own identity. When people would say like, "Oh, so how do you identify?" I'm like, Black. I identify as Black because wherever I go in this world or in the US, no one's gonna look at me and be like, "You're Nigerian, you're special." And I really shouldn't be special, right? They're gonna see that I'm Black, and whatever their reactions to that is gonna be, that's what I'm getting, right? It doesn't matter so much that, like, I'm Nigerian. The idea is that, like, I'm Black and I have experiences like other Black people have, like other Black women have. So Princeton was really great and not great for helping me to, identify that, but once I did, it felt like this light bulb went off and I started to understand more my place in the world. And that really began with changing my identity to Black instead of Nigerian, because I started to understand that, like, oh, I am these folks and I, strangers, people that I know, we understand something about our experiences that bring us together that no one else does. And it's really special. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love just hearing about how you speak to the connectivity between all of the different aspects of Blackness with you being an immigrant, but then once you got to the US, realizing that, well, I am still seen as Black and that I do have this connection to your home country, but also to
Mm,
African Americans. And so I think it's really interesting that you share that because we have had similar conversations on this podcast
mm,
prior with guests that have been immigrants, and they've also noticed that there's kind of some division between African Americans and
mm.
Black immigrants, and it's really, I think, unifying to hear that not only we're recognizing that, but we're working to kind of disrupt that and come together, like you said, Ubuntu. I am because we are. And I was hoping you'd be able to share a little bit more about just that adjustment from immigrating from Nigeria when you did
Mm.
get to like Princeton. I mean, that's an elite institution, and I'm sure like there were some social dynamics that you were uncovering. I know you mentioned you identified, yourself as a Black person at that
Mhm,
time, but
mhm.
when it came to kind of how you communicated with other Black students or just like generally learning kind of like the culture, how was that for you? Or did you encounter any challenges?
Yeah, so for me, what was great, I'm big into theater. I love musical theater. I love all kind of theater. So, I don't know, it was like I think like like a box, like a block, like a light went off in my mind, and so I joined Black Arts Company immediately. I was like, it felt like the way that I was gonna survive Princeton was by getting to know Black people, being with Black people, and when I was in FSI, my 3 best friends were these Latinas. So it was like it just felt right already just being like with people of color. So I joined Black Arts Company, which I don't know if they still have it at Princeton, but basically it was this theater group that was dedicated to Black people doing theater at Princeton. And we were doing Black arts. So things by Black artists, plays, all kind of musical works, things like that, art, theater by Black people. And so I asked when I started to come into contact with people like James Baldwin, for instance, or Dorothy Roberts. And then from there, I remember taking it was like an English class, but it was about like African American artists and reading Killing the Black Body by Dorothy Roberts and being like, oh my God, like this is insane. Sociology was really key because I started to learn about race and racism, and up until that point, I didn't have a framework for understanding my experiences, right? I didn't have a framework for understanding myself as an immigrant, but also as a Black person in the US and understanding how those two things were coming together. And so I took a sociology class in the summer, and then I took Mario Small's class, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is my life!" Like sociology is completely explaining everything that I've been experiencing, and so it was very much a in sociology, we call this thing called standpoint theory, which is where Dorothy Smith, she's this Canadian sociologist who argues that in order to have a sociology that makes sense, that's actually a social science. We need to include women's voices. We need to include women's experiences. We need to talk to women because we can learn a lot. And then Patricia Hill Collins, another sociologist, expands on this. And she says African American women actually have a unique standpoint and a unique experience, and they produce knowledge from their lived experiences that we need to understand in order to understand our social world, in order to understand the US and how it works. And so for me, that's what was happening to me. Like, I started to understand myself in the US and my Blackness in the US. Um, and then being in spaces with Black people, joining Black arts company, I really wish I had done more. I wish I had joined the gospel choir. I wish that I had joined the Black Christian Fellowship. I wished I had done so much, but even the little that I did really connected me to Black folks. And when I think about the people at Princeton that I like and admire now, it's not all the folks at Princeton Evangelical Fellowship, which is where I spent a lot of my time. It's like all of the Black women I know that are doing amazing things. So for me, the culmination was doing for my senior year, I did a play called For Colored Girls. Um, and Liliana Blaine Cruz, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of her, but you should look her up. You should have her on this show. She directed us, and it was in an all Black female cast, which was at that point unheard of at Princeton. Like, I felt like I had hit the jackpot, right? I was getting to be in a show with Black women that I had met all along my time at Princeton, including Liliana. And Liliana's like a big deal now, right? She's like produced award-winning plays in New York City. Some of the people that I would say were acquaintances, Brandon Jacob Jenkins, also a big deal. He's a MacArthur Genius Award winner. Like, I was in theater with them. And these folks were just so grounded, so kind, so generous. The only thing I regret about my time at Princeton was that I didn't spend more time with them. I wish I had spent less time at Princeton Evangelical Fellowship and less time in white spaces. But I just I don't know how to describe it except that, like, I finally understood what I was missing out on. And now at this point in my career, at this point in my life, like, I'm all about trying to do things with Black women, trying to dive into issues that concern Black people, um, just trying to be as blackety black as I can be. That's really where I am at this point in my life. But I've often looked at my time at Princeton with regret, but this is making me realize that, like, it actually gave me such a gift because I recognized that I was Black and I got to be with other Black people. And a lot of those folks, Princeton '06 Black people, are doing just amazing things in the world for Black people, right? Not just for like the world, but they really have this centeredness about them where they're like, we are about Black people, we're about producing Black art, we're about delving into health disparities for Black people, we're about being Black journalists, like, that is Black centric. And it's really cool to know that, like, that came out of an Ivy League, right? We didn't have to go to an HBCU. It would have been fantastic. But just to recognize, like, I was able to experience that at a place like Princeton, and thank goodness, because I was still really lost when I was there. And so this served as like an anchor for me, right? In retrospect, it was really a place of anchoring and a place of grounding for me that in retrospect, I now realize, like, wow, I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't have that experience.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That was so insightful. It seems like you were really able to build community at Princeton in a predominantly white institution. And I was wondering if you could speak more to that, just the importance of building camaraderie around those with your shared identity in spaces where you're underrepresented. Because I'd imagine that that takes a lot of intentionality in areas where we are underrepresented. And like you said, in the play, there was an all Black female cast. It seems like there was a lot of intentional effort to
Mhm.
build that community and camaraderie amongst Black people there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, gosh, when I think about it, I'm shy by nature. I've learned to become a little bit of extrovert. I'm a learned extrovert, I would say. People are like, "You're an extrovert," and they're like, "You're an introvert," and I'm, "Yes, I'm definitely an introvert."
You're
But
doing well because I would have never guessed you were
yeah.
introverted.
But I would say, just thinking back, the folks, the Black folks at Princeton, they never questioned me. As soon as I showed interest in wanting to get to know other Black folks, there were no questions. So there's this fun anecdote that one of my friends from Princeton, she was like, "Well, at first we weren't sure if you were an incognito or not." And I was like, "What does that mean?" She's like, "An incognito is someone who is Black but doesn't hang out with Black people. And we weren't quite sure, so we didn't know what to do. But then you started hanging out with us and talking to us, and they were like, 'Oh, good, she's not an incognito.'" And I was like, "Oh,
That's
thank
so
God."
wild. I've had that happen. I've had that happen too. I'm biracial, and so like that's definitely been an undertone that I've
Yeah.
had.
Yeah. And so I was like, "Oh God, I don't want to be an incognito." And so that's the term that I've always used to describe Black people who are not kinfolk, right? They might not skin folk, but they're not kinfolk. And so what I think was really cool is that no one, as soon as I was like, "Oh, I'm interested in getting to know Black people. I want to be around Black people. I want to do Black things. I want to be with Black people." Nobody questioned, like, "Are you Black enough?" It was just like, "Okay, great. You're one of us. Let's do it. You want to be in these shows. You want to do these things. You want to hang out with us. We're about it." And then the conversations, right? So, like, I'm a sociology major. I'm reading all about race and racism. I'm starting to have this conversation with Black people that I have never had before with anybody else about my experiences, right? I had had these same experiences as them, but I didn't really have anyone to talk about it with except like my parents, my mom. And are these folks that are like, "Oh my gosh, yes, and this and that and that." And I started to realize the conversations that I was having with Black people at Princeton were way different from the conversations that I was having with white people at Princeton, especially white Christians. And it was just like, again, I have found home, right? And so the thing I want to say is like, there is, as long as there's a generosity and an acceptance of other Black people, there will always be community, because nobody questioned who I was. As soon as they saw that, like, "Oh, she's about Black people, she's about Black people things, she wants to be with us," there were no questions, right? And I think this is important when it comes to bridging that divide between African Americans and Africans, because the thing is, like, that divide is artificial, right? That is a divide that's created because the thing is there's so much power in us being together. And the thing is, like, white supremacists know this, and we're not the first to. W.E.B. Du Bois, all the Pan-Africanists, they understood this really well. James Baldwin, all the folks that end up moving to Europe or moving back to Africa, they understood that, like, it was all about getting back to the roots. And we get to define what the roots are, right? There might be all of these cultural things that we're bringing together, but again, it's about the Ubuntu. It's about recognizing, like, we're Black. That's it. And we're going to find a way to be together, to work together, to love each other, because that is the, whether for good or bad, whatever it is that has brought us together, we are together, right? And that's going to be the key that holds us. So I think as long as we're really just practicing human generosity and kindness, vulnerability, reciprocity, it can be easy to build community. It's still challenging. I think that sometimes I think, "Oh man, I wish I had like Black female friends, more Black female friends." And I think within the Black community, women write about how sometimes it can be difficult for Black women to make friends. Sure, those are all true things. I think that gets compounded with age and the stage you are in life and all kinds of things. But again, there's always always this underlying theme of, like, we belong to each other, and nobody can take that away from us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I remember personally, I had a friend who was in a debate, with some folks about, cultural differences between Africans and African Americans and just numerous topics on the diaspora. And, really there was a conclusion that was presented that when we get pulled over by the police, we're all Black. They don't say, "Oh, you're African," or "You're African American," or, "You're biracial." It's like when they see you, they know you're Black at the end of the day, no matter where you came from. So
white supremacy truly does not care. And
Yeah.
we need to remember that, right? And I don't think that this means that we ignore issues in our community, but I do think that it's this continued sense of Ubuntu where it's just like, I am because you are, precisely because of these experiences that we have with each other. And to recognize that a lot of the conflicts are socially constructed because people know our power when we come together. We see this with the civil rights movement. We saw this with Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. Like, we have a legacy. Even in Nigeria, Fela Kuti, all these folks, when we come together, we have power. You see this with the Nigerians women's movement against the British colonialists. They said, "Oh, you guys want to play games with our food? Okay, we know how this goes." Right? So like, we're, as a people, Africans and African Americans in the diaspora, we're coming from a legacy of like activism, community power. And we need to keep stepping into that. It's hard to do because the divisions, capitalism, sexism, racial inequality, they're all there, constructed to divide us. But recognizing that, like, we need to keep fighting for that community, that global, local, national community.
I love that. And yeah, no, I agree with you completely about how we have, like, as a Black community, this fervent desire for liberation, and we will
Mhm.
pursue that at all costs,
Yep.
regardless of the external forces that you mentioned, like white supremacy, that's trying
Yeah.
to sow that division. Once you recognize that and you're able to, liberate yourself from colonization that's been
Yes.
inherently kind of indoctrinated into us, then you're able to realize that through connectivity that we're all tethered, and that we're stronger
Yes.
together, like you mentioned. So
Yes.
I just really, yeah, love hearing that. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and just pivoting a little bit more about your time at U Chicago in social
Mhm.
work. So, after obtaining your master's in social work at U Chicago, you went on to pursue your doctorate at UPenn, delving into the topic of modern dating. And so, in your dissertation, Dating in the Digital Age, Sex, Love, and Inequality, you explored how relationship formation plays out in the digital space as a lens to understand racial and gender inequality in the US. Can you speak to how you uncovered this gap in research and how your identity as a Black woman informed your work?
Yes. I after college, I went right away to get a degree in a master's in social work because I was like, well, I don't want to sit up in the ivory tower and talk about problems. Like, other people can do that. I'm not going to do that. I was so naive. So I was like, I'm gonna go to social work school. Went to University of Chicago. It was really great. Became a hospital social worker. So I actually graduated from there and moved to Philadelphia, where I was a social worker, full-time social worker for 5 years. And then I decided to apply. I guess it was my fourth year of doing social work. I decided to go back and apply in a graduate to doctoral program. I had a senior thesis advisor at Princeton that was like, "So, when are you gonna get your PhD?" And I was like, "Never. Why are you talking about this?" And then I had a professor at University of Chicago, and she was like, "I really think you should get a PhD." And I was like, "Why do people keep talking about this? I don't want to take tests. I don't think I'm cut out for this." And I said, I'll after 5 years, I'll evaluate and see if I'm still interested in the same things. And I was. And the reason I was is because I started dating online. So when I was at U Chicago, I met my first boyfriend and we dated for about a year. And then we broke up. And part of that was long distance. I graduated from Chicago, moved to Philadelphia for my job at the University of UPenn Hospital. And then we broke up, and now it was like, okay, now I have to find another boyfriend, I guess.
You're
So,
on to the next. No,
on to the next. And so I started going online, and oh my gosh, it was horrifying. Just I was like, this is crazy. Like, it was bad news. Just the things that I would see, the things that people would say about Black women, I'm just like, "Oh my god, you wake up every day and think these thoughts. Not only that, you chose to put it on the internet. Not only that, people still date you even though you're saying this awful shit on the internet." Anyway, so I was just like, "Okay, this is bad news." Like, and at Princeton, I had already written about I did a junior paper on the marital statuses of Black women post-college. Then I did a senior thesis on how institutions are matchmakers, and they match people across race, class, economic, educational attainment, religion. So, like, I was already in the throes of this. Um, and so I was like, "The internet sucks. If I'm experiencing this, I feel like other women must be experiencing this." And of course, I talked to other Black women and it was just like complete disaster. So I was like, well, here's my project. Again, standpoint theory, right? This idea that like women, but especially Black women, the things that we're going through are valid sociological basis for answering research questions. Like we can answer all kind of research questions by trying to understand what's going on in our own lives. So I was trying to understand why men thought it was okay to have a fetishization for Black women, or to say that they didn't want to date Black women. I was like, why do you think this is okay? And how are other women experiencing this? So I went back to graduate school and I always knew that I was going to be talking to women about their dating experiences, and it just happened to be at a time when online dating was a thing. And so I think it's important to recognize that like dating in the digital world is both thinking about this on and offline, because the thing is they often come together, right? There are ways in which the things that we do in real life translate, they look a particular way online. People are doing all kind of racial exclusion before the internet, but we didn't know that's what they were doing until the internet came along and they're like, oh sure, I'll do this on the internet too. Like this is just how I roll in my real life. Like, and here's a place that makes it so much easier for me to do this exclusion or fetishization, you know. So they're just, the internet is just a tool that white supremacy adopts to continue to show us where racial and gender inequality is. This like, so if anyone comes along and there was no racial exclusion based on race and gender before the internet, they're lying. This is not the truth. We just weren't able to capture it the way we can capture it because people are extremely loud and proud about their racism on the internet. So I went in knowing for sure that that was what I was going to study. And it just, what a privilege. What an incredible privilege to get to talk to all kinds of women about their stories. And by the time I was done, I was married and everything. But like, I just think that having gone through it, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I totally saw that when I was dating too, right? Like being able to connect with women and then especially Black women, it was such an amazing opportunity and such a privilege to do that. So it really came again out of my own experiences of dating and being like, well, if this is terrible for me, it's got to be terrible for other people. And I want to know what it looks like for them. Are my hunches correct about what's
Yeah.
happening here? And so it was that. And then I learned so much more. So,
That's so amazing. And I'm sure it was also like validating for you too to verify what you were experiencing with research, and also empowering for the women you spoke to hear
yes.
that I'm not the only person who's experienced this, because
Yes.
what you're sharing about, how there's so much discrimination that's just visible on these dating apps, like that
Mhm.
resonates with me. I've seen that. I felt that fetishization, like
Mhm.
people just feeling like they have any leeway to say whatever they want without any repercussions, and
Yeah.
it's really just covert racism a lot of
Yep.
times, and many of them don't realize that a lot of these biases they have are implicit, but that to marginalize folks and to Black women, like that is so um kind of, I guess, just overwhelming for us to even like want to engage in dating, at all, because it's a whole other emotional investment on top of experiencing the world as a Black woman, like
Right.
you said, like the standpoint that we are navigating the world. There's so much like compounded discrimination, and so for
Yes.
us, like finding love, like that in itself is its own like arduous endeavor. And so
Yeah.
I'm just grateful that you were the person that decided to pursue that area of research, because I think you had mentioned that that wasn't really something that had been identified before you had decided to go into that and make that your PhD. So
Yeah, so people were already doing the work. So the
yeah.
person that I like to refer to as the OG of this is Avril Clark. She ended up leaving academia, but she
Yeah.
is the woman, she's just underrated. We don't talk about her work enough.
Wow.
So she wrote this book called Inequalities of Love. So she's already getting into it. She's already understanding that like there are cultural and systemic issues. This has nothing to do with the insides of Black women, but there are these external factors that are already constraining Black women's opportunities to find love. So Avril Clark is already telling us this stuff. But I think the issue is we don't, as sociologists in our in and as Americans, we really see love as agentic. We really think this is a personal problem. If you're having a problem finding someone to date, that's a you problem. That is not a society problem. And Avril Clark starts telling us, no, 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 that's not it. So all I do, honestly, is I build on her work and say, not only is she correct, but let's look at how the internet is making it even worse, right? And people like Celeste Currington also start doing this work. She's talking more broadly about like like people of color, men and women. I kind of take it down and go the Avril Clark route and really focus on women and really focusing on Black women. But people definitely came before me were already saying this. But because we see love as like, oh, that's a personal problem, we don't understand it like, no, it's literally embedded. And the thing is like, it's so interesting when it comes to Black people, people want to really be like, this is a personal problem, right? But like, we love and like reproduction issues, these have always been societal problems. So when we think about slaves, like their inability to get married to who they wanted, the idea of rape, even the idea of queer Black men, queer Black women, all of these things are all existing, but we always think they come alive when we start talking about it. No, it's always been there. We're just unearthing what has always been there, right? Like Black women's love lives have always been a site for inequality. People are just now interested in it, but they've always been a site for inequality. So for me, I don't see myself as like a pioneer. I see myself as like following in the footsteps of all these Black women that are already doing the work, and then really honing in on something that resonated with me, which is Black women's particular experiences, and being like, this is important. This is a sociological site of inequality as much as poverty or racism or unemployment or wealth inequality. And Avril Clark, personally for me, is the one. She's the person I think, the one that starts making me understand like this is a sociological topic. People are gonna think like, oh, rom-com, love. No, she's like, no, 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 no. This is a sociological topic and we need to be serious about it. So I'm really grateful to her and then all the other sociologists and Black sociologists, female sociologists that have come along and really started to point this out, and all the other Black female sociologists that create the anchor for us. So like Patricia Hill Collins, right? Creating this framework that better helps us to understand what we're studying, the experiences that women are telling us about their dating lives.
Wow, that is so amazing. And it's crazy to just see how white supremacy has influenced dating, particularly for Black women. I remember in college, I had a friend who I'm no longer friends with, but we were just having a discussion about dating, and he goes, I just think Black women are ugly in general. And I said, huh? Like it really enraged me. And I was like, do you see the issue with what you just said that Black women are ugly? I said, it's a whole different conversation to say, okay, maybe you have a racial preference or whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But to say Black women are ugly is insane. And he didn't see a problem with it. So, me being messy, when we were in a group with our Black friends who were women, I was like, so didn't you say the other day that you thought Black women were ugly? And he was like, no, I never said that. I never said that. But I was like, the other day you didn't have a problem with it. So it's like the fact that you were too afraid to say that in a
Mhm,
room of Black women shows that
mhm.
that what you said was foul and rooted in white supremacy and
Yes.
racism. So
Yep.
I just love the work that you're doing because you're able to
Yeah.
capture that online.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, racial preferences are, it's not a different conversation. It's the same conversation. I'm like, just interrogate your racial preferences. Like, you can like who you like, but make sure you understand that you are very much influenced by the racial hierarchy. I'm sorry, right? Like, just as much as you're influenced by your family, you're also influenced by a society that was created on the subjugation of Black people's backs and Black women's wombs. That's just the reality of the situation. So you can say, I don't like Black women, but I want you to take it a step further and say, why? Why is that? Why don't I like Black women? Where did I get the message from? What do I actually think about Black women? What do I know about them? What are the messages that I'm getting about Black women that say to me, I don't like them? You might still end up at the same conclusion, which is that, like, they're not my preference for partners, but at least you have done some self reflection on, like, these are the things that have influenced this preference of mine, right? And so I think that we should also have this conversation for Black men. I don't do work on Black men, but I want to know the tea too. I don't think that it's just like roses and, oh, we dating white women. Like, I don't think it's just like, you know,
We
like,
need a dissertation on it. We definitely
right?
Oh,
do.
I have thoughts on this. I'm ready to hear this.
Yeah.
I have thoughts.
Like, I don't think that it's
Yeah.
just like chocolate and flowers out there for them. I don't think that it's talked about, right? I think we talk about Black men, but we don't talk to Black men about, like, what are your experiences and where do your influences come from? And if you date Black women and love Black women, why? What are the messages that you got that make you say those are your preferences? And for Black men that don't, what are the messages? And we're not talking about changing people's minds. I'm not going to change your mind. I'm just curious, right? I've had to do this work myself. I'm straight up. My husband is a white guy from Maine, and my children are biracial. But my husband is like the most pro Black person you will ever find because that is important to us. For him to be in a relationship with me, he can't just like Black things. You need to like Black people. You need to be about Black humanity. So that's my question. I'm curious, what is it about Black humanity that you know of? Where have you learned it? Where did you get it? I would love to do this project for Black men as well. And I don't even think that I would do it. I would send out other Black men to interview other Black men because they might feel more comfortable telling the truth to another Black man. And really, let's hash it out. Let's act like we are at the barbershop and really talk about this, and really delve into, like, what does this reflect about the society that you're living in? And let's not say, oh, that's just how Black men are, but really think we're all products of our society and think about, well, what are the products that we're internalizing? Let's talk about it. Let's kiki about it, figure it out, ask questions, be curious.
Oh, absolutely. I love this. And I love that you want to dive more into it with Black men. I don't know why it makes me so angry. Like maybe I need to get over it. But I have Black male friends that I see that only date white women or only get with white women. And I always press them about it. I'm like,
Mm,
now, why is that? And with one of my friends, I had a conversation because, his whole family is Black and his family pointed out that, oh, he only gets with white women. And, living in a predominantly white town, I gave my opinion once and I was like, I think, especially living in a predominantly white town, subconsciously, when you're friends with, a lot of white people, a lot of white men, it might be sort of a status thing because I think sometimes Black men in context of society can sometimes feel inferior to white men due
mhm,
to systemic reasons. And
mhm.
so when they
Mhm.
get a white woman, it might make them feel like they are of equal status or kind of give them that, subconscious feeling that they're winning or doing better because they're trying to, disconnect from that feeling of inferiority.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the thing is that, again, I don't think we need to change people's minds or say that they need to change a different partner. The thing
Mhm.
is, you can have a white partner and still love Black people.
Mhm.
My issue becomes when you have a white partner and you are holding the same stereotypical anti-Black sentiments, then we have an issue, right? That's when it becomes a big problem. And so again, I think that Yes, all kinds of things. I think even for myself, speaking personally, let me talk about myself. When your parents tell you that you're not Black, you're not African American, don't be like those Black people, and you see in the world that whiteness is what has power, whiteness is what gets rewarded, whiteness is what's seen as good. You're going to internalize that if you don't have any other messages coming in
Exactly.
and replacing that, challenging that, disrupting that, right? So, like, and it's very intentional, like you said, Brad. So, for us, for our kids, we recognize they're biracial, but we live in downtown Inglewood. We're not playing any games with them. You know?
I love that. Yes, that's amazing.
Like so my husband and I, we recognize like we can't just be like, oh, Blackness will come to them. That's not what's gonna
No.
happen.
You're like, we have to teach them because they're teaching white supremacy. And so you have to
Precisely.
resist that. Yeah.
Precisely. And so it's like we have to be so again, you can have a white partner. That's not what we're talking about.
Mhm.
We're talking about what's your attitude towards Black people? What is your attitude towards yourself? And what are your goals in terms of your Blackness? That's what we want to know. I don't think having a white partner negates that. I'm going to be honest. I want to know, is your partner pro-Black? Are they going to ride
That's
for
the real
Blackness?
question. Yep. Yep. I love hearing that too. Like you shared about, how your husband brought you closer to your own blackness. And it's about
Mm-hmm.
seeing our humanity and also
Yes.
like them really having actionable allyship beyond just,
Mhm.
I like black people, or I care for black people.
Exactly.
Like they're actually working for that, educating your children, like putting
Precisely.
yourself in black spaces because cultural
Mhm.
competence is something that has to be taught too. And for
Exactly.
me, like growing up biracial, I had the opposite experience of what you're
Mm.
sharing. Like I was raised by my white family in a
Mm.
predominantly white environment, and
Mhm.
I had only been taught whiteness up until I went
Mhm.
to college. And so for
Mhm.
me, I had to intentionally go out and teach myself about black history and put
Mhm.
myself in black
Yep.
spaces because it is
Yep.
easy to kind of fall to those assimilatory tendencies into whiteness because it is the path of least resistance.
Right.
And I think that's partly like what Brad was talking about too, with how we often see like the interracial partnerships
Mhm.
specifically with black men. I forget the
Mhm.
statistic. It might be like black men date, I think, outside of their race.
Twice
I
as
figured you would
much.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, twice as much. And so,
Yeah.
like my dad is black, my mom is white, and so
Yeah.
like that's something too where for me I had to like figure that out, like as a black woman,
Mhm.
do other black men find me attractive, or like where are
Mhm.
people finding attraction? Like what
Yeah.
is kind of creating this framework like you talked about? And so I think
Yeah.
it's about getting to the source of like what do you actually find, attractive in your partners, and why is that? Like
Right.
is it because someone told you that? Is it messaging? Or is it
Yeah.
because you find it attractive, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's just so interesting, seriously.
And even then, why do you find it attractive,
Yeah.
right? Like my first boyfriend was a Nigerian Black man, thank God. Right? But like I really had to do that work of interrogating. Where does my attraction come from? Why do I find why might I find white men more attractive? What's that about, you know? And again, it's about that curiosity for yourself and not feeling bad. We are social beings integrated into a social world that is socially constructed in a particular way. In the US, racial stratification, literally we have racial hierarchies, we have gender hierarchies, we have sexual orientation hierarchies. To pretend that somehow we're just going to grow up and skate by and none of that is going to be internalized is naive. So if you already know that that's going to be the baseline, then it's about interrogating where that lies within you because it's there. You can't escape it.
Wow, thank you so much. And I really do feel like that leads great into our next question. From your expertise as a sociologist, how do you envision cultural dynamics around dating shifting in the future as technology advances and economic inequality widens, particularly during the digital age when younger generations are increasingly experiencing loneliness?
So I read this question and I wanted to talk about what you meant by cultural dynamics.
I'm so sorry. I think it's more so about kind of the aspect of what people are encountering when they're dating online and how that like translates to your experiences offline. And so if you have any insight into that, I guess you already kind of spoke about it, just how there's like increased visibility of like racism, discrimination, on dating apps. But yeah, I guess if you have any thoughts on kind of what those dynamics are for women, or are you seeing like more Black women deciding to use dating apps less because of what we're experiencing on those apps, or yeah, just generally that?
Yeah, so I really I don't know what cultural dynamics will be like. I think as long as we have white supremacy in the world and whiteness continues to be the thing that's celebrated, rewarded, um, at the top of the hierarchy, we're always going to have these kind of racial dynamics. I do think it's going to be interesting, though, to think about the fact that sooner rather than later, we're going to have more generations of young people that are biracial and multiracial. And so I think that's going to be interesting to think about what kind of alliances people end up building because of that. And I think in this area, I think colorism is going to be an important way for how discrimination functions. I think if whiteness is still a thing, even if you're multiracial, the closer you are phenotypically to whiteness, I think we're going to see some alliances that form that way. Um, but I also think that generations of Black people are going to continue to understand that Blackness matters, Black liberation matters. Um, I think we are coming into a kind of like the pot is boiling over. We have to decide what kind of society we're going to be. Are we going to be a society that's multicultural and really means it? Or are we going to be a white supremacist, theocratic, fascist society? So I think that there are definitely decisions to be made that way. And as long as like those things continue to bubble over, I think you're always going to see that online, right? Because there are lots of people that are more emboldened these days, including Gen Z white men who are like, it's okay for me to be racist, right? They're loud and proud about it, and they see that as their heritage. They see that as part of their racial pride. So as long as like that's in the ether, you're going to see that. Now, how we're going to tolerate it, how we're gonna disabuse people of those kinds of things. I think that remains to be seen because I think we're starting to decide what kind of society are we? Are we gonna be a society that imprisons our neighbors and our friends, our Latino brothers and sisters? Are we gonna be Black people who are okay with that? Not recognizing that that's the lineage of white supremacy and slavery, and recognizing that as ethnic cleansing, right? So I think that there are not just questions about white supremacy, but for Black people, what kind of Black people are we going to be? Are we going to continue in the legacy of activism and fighting for each other's humanity? So I think you will always have raggedy people on the internet. Um, I think depending on what we are about as a society, either people will start to really think about what they put on the internet, or they're gonna be like, this is me. I'm racist and I'm proud of it. But I think we're always gonna have racial experiences, as long as there's white supremacy. So I think the question is like, what are we willing to, not we, let me say, what are white people willing to do to dismantle the supremacy that they've created, and which has penetrated every aspect of society? And as Black people, I'm speaking for Black people, what are we going to do to continue to elevate our humanity and take care of our humanity? Those are the questions that I have, I think.
Thank you so much. I was wondering, from a cultural standpoint, I guess you could say, based on your research, do you think dating apps have kind of encouraged people to date outside of their race in some ways? Like maybe, if, let's say, for example, a white male grew up in a predominantly white town, didn't, experience, having black people around or seeing black women, and maybe they get on an app and they see black women. Have you seen that in your research by chance, that people are more willing to step outside of their race in this new digital age where they're exposed to more?
I wouldn't say that based on my research. Now, my research is getting a little bit older, so y'all might be able to tell me a little bit more. But what I've seen is people often replicate their preferences online. The internet offers the opportunity to do something different, but people often don't. So even if they're not putting, I don't want to date Black women, or excluding Black women from their list of races that they're interested in, or, filtering Black women out or filtering Black people, people definitely still, people definitely still bring those preferences to their dating online. So again, there's an opportunity to do something different, but I don't think that people are doing things that much differently. There's a great book by, I want to shout out, April Williams, called Not My Type, where she talks about how the dating algorithms themselves are actually set up to prioritize whiteness. So even if everybody was like, yo, we're about everybody, they would still have to overcome this even capitalistic belief that whiteness is the best. So there are ways in which this is not just about people's behaviors, but the ways in which folks are literally creating algorithms and encouraging user behavior that preferences whiteness, right? So we'd have to be dismantling a lot, not just people's interactions, but the ways in which dating sites literally enable that kind of behavior.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see that with the algorithm trying to kind of prioritize whiteness or that desirability.
Mhm.
Because I think have felt that similarly on the apps. Like I haven't met a lot of people that have led to lasting connections that were not, my own identity or
Mhm.
were white
Mhm.
necessarily. And I
Mhm.
think your speculation about that is correct because I don't believe many people are comfortable like engaging in that internal work to
Mhm.
venture outside of what they know or what they
Right.
believe is socially acceptable. Like I think what you're sharing is like the human behavior is predicated upon what society deems,
Mhm.
okay, or something that I guess folks want to aspire to or what kind of relationship they want to have. And if they don't necessarily see that represented, they may not be interested in even exploring it.
Right, and to think
Yeah.
about we think about where people live, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's the Lord's year 2025, neighborhoods are still really segregated. So
And
if you're
gentrified. Yeah.
and gentrified. So if you're
Hmm.
online, even in Atlanta or wherever, you're still getting information. It might not be accurate about who's in your area. So if you are a Black person who's interested in interracial dating, but you're living, because a lot of Black millennials now and Gen Z folks, a lot of us end up in places that are more predominantly white because that's where the jobs are. So you might still be struggling because even though there are people, you might be interested in dating non-Black people, they might not be interested in dating you, or maybe they're living in the same place but they're not comfortable because they haven't known that. So there's all these kind of barriers that again lie outside humans, and just the way in which we've literally created our social spaces, have created our residential areas. Gentrification is a huge one, right? So maybe you are someone who was from New York City, or not, you moved to New York City, you moved to Harlem, and you're just like, I moved to Harlem for Black people. Where are they? You know, like I moved to Atlanta for Black people. Where are they? And so like Black people then have to be super strategic about where they go if you're really invested in, if this is something that's really important to you. And it's really, and I think like we call it homogamy when people marry people, racial homogamy when people marry people of the same race. A lot of times when Black people are trying to do that, it's really about racial survival. That's what I found in my work. It's not necessarily just about like, well, I don't like white people. It's about understanding that you continue to live in a place where part of shoring up part of surviving it is shoring up that Black community, and you wanna do that through marriage, right? So some people want to do that. So there's even talking about that, right? Are Black people able to find each other? So I think it has to do with a lot of things, not just people's behaviors, but even where they live, what kinda job they're doing. We're not Are we gonna go back to meeting people in person? I hope so. you know?
Me too. Yeah. I hope the dating
Right.
apps go.
Yeah. But then we still have the same issues, right? If you were still living in a place that's segregated or gentrified, now it's like you might not be able to see it as fast as you would on the apps, but you might still be running into the same issue. So we have a lot of dismantling of racism that has to do because it's literally embedded in the ways our cities are structured, the spaces that we're in are structured.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
that's oh, sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I saw, in your research, spoke with over 100 Black women, and you found that dating can be hard for them, especially in segregated areas. And I was curious if you've done similar research or have any thoughts on dating for, queer men and women in certain areas, because I found, my personal experience, it's very hard for me, especially in Seattle's very white, to
Hmm.
find folks. The dating pool is a little smaller,
Hmm.
especially if I'm, looking to meet other Black men.
Yes.
But I find that when I go to other cities like in Atlanta or
Yes.
Houston, I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, there's some more options out here.
Yes.
So,
Yes, 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 yes to all of that. So part of my work, I did write a paper about how some places do provide more opportunities for interracial dating. So if you want to date a Black person wants to date a non-Black person, and for Black people who want to date other Black people, and I've moved on to do some work on queer women and their dating experiences online and offline as well. And for queer people, it's even more compounded, right? Because not only if you're a person of color, you might be looking to date. Again, it's about survival, right? It's not just about like, well, I hate white people. No, it's about like there's something about being Black and queer that you don't want to have to be explaining that necessarily to someone that is not that, right? And so there's the Blackness, and then there's the queer part, right? So not every place is queer friendly. So you might have trouble finding queer people first of all, and then second of all, Black people. That's what we call intersectionality. That's going to be really challenging. So I talked to some white women, who were living in university cities, university towns, but if they were going to be exploring their queerness outside of that, they had to be super careful, right? Or queer Black women who are like, I'm really only trying to date other Black people because I need to make sure I'm safe. This is about safety for me. So yes, we are running into the same, they run into the, not we as Black people, but queer Black people are running into the same issues, and it's more constrained because of that intersection. And so, yeah, right. Brad might decide, you know what? Seattle's great, but I want a life partner. I can't stay here. So now you got to be strategic about where you go. You can't just go any old place in the US, right? Like you really have to think about where can I go? Because if I really want to be with someone, and I want to have relationships, or I just want to have fun with other Black men, I'm not staying in Seattle. It's not happening. And that is the privilege of whiteness is you could go to Seattle and be straight. You never have to leave there again. Nothing. You don't have to ever do anything. If you're queer and white, you're good. You never have to. That's not how Black life works, right? There's
I
always
see.
this strategizing and this extra labor, this extra work that we have to do, which is why, again, we need to be in community with each other and be upholding each other and caring for each other. Because as far as I can see, that work continues to be has to be done. It doesn't look like it's dissipating anytime soon.
That's so valuable. And thank you so much for diving into that. And Brad, I appreciate the question too. And I think, it's important for us to be cognizant of where we are, not only for our own survival, but for our future, like what you aspire to. If you do want to find a life partner, maybe
Mhm.
making that move out of your current city may have to be done for you to find someone that you align with, both
Yeah.
values wise, but also, like you mentioned, universities were kind of the matching places for many folks, particularly white folks, that they can find people within the
Yep.
similar class, or a lot of times they're
Exactly.
elevating classes by meeting
Hmm.
their partner there. And
Hmm.
that not doesn't necessarily happen for Black people, which also is a whole other conversation about like generational wealth and kind of the
Hmm.
economic factors with that
Hmm.
too. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's just very fascinating that you talk about that. But switching a little bit, from a historical standpoint, can you share what your research article, Learning About Race, the lived experiences of interracially married US born white and European immigrant women in the 1930s, illuminated to you about interracial dating and how these relationships impacted the construction of race in the modern day, particularly in regards to allyship from white partners? And I know you kind
Yeah.
of spoke about that already, like kind of with your own marriage, but if you'd be willing to talk a little bit more about like the historical framework, I think that would be valuable.
Yeah, no, and the thing is all of these topics are connected, right? That's kind of like the beauty is like there are these threads that hold them all together. Um, so yeah, this was research that I did with Dorothy Roberts. She is famous and amazing. She has a new book coming out, her memoir. So let me plug that. Even though it's not my book, I love her. She's great. So basically, her father in the 1930s, her dad was white. And her mom was Jamaican. So they're in an interracial relationship at a time when like it's very rare, like in Chicago. And her dad, both of them actually collected interviews with people in black, white, interracial marriages in Chicago starting in the 1880s, so going way back. And so what I did was I looked at these interviews and I compared European born white women to American born white women, so European immigrant women to American native born American women in relationships basically with black men. And what I find is that first, the European women learn about racism really quick. They learn about the racial hierarchy really fast through those marriages. So they may not have known that much about it or have heard about it or kind of interacted with black people, but like they learn really quickly that black people are at the bottom of the hierarchy and white Americans, Anglo, native born white people are at the top of that hierarchy. And so what you start seeing in the 1920s and 1930s is whiteness starts to come together or it starts becoming one kind of thing. Before we had these cleavages between like, are you Italian, are you Southern European, Eastern European, are you from England or Germany, right? There was the hierarchy there. But what happens is with the 1920s, with the World War, whiteness starts to coalesce around itself and say, hey, we can have power as one. And this is also happening as Black people are also migrating to the cities, right? So Black people are becoming more free, quote unquote. They're not enslaved anymore. But in order to tighten their racial power, white people are like, let's get rid of these cleavages between us and kind of coalesce around our identity as whiteness. So the European women are like, okay, we see the cleavages, we understand that, but we also recognize the racial cleavages between black and white. And so for them, they kind of adhere more to joining in more with the black community is what I end up finding. I don't know if this is generalizable, but in this sample, these women bond more with black people. They start to coalesce around them. Native born white women not so much. They're like, we need to improve our racial power. And again, right, we're social beings, we're products of our social structure. For at that point, they're seeing the cleavages disappear and whiteness become one kind of identity. And they're also losing power because they're in these interracial relationships. So to protect themselves, right, as a response to this, they're saying we are going to consolidate our racial power. It doesn't mean that they're going to leave their black husbands behind, but they're going to be joining clubs and being in social circles that enhance their whiteness. So that's the difference between those two groups. And I think, speaking of threads, I think that black people and white people have the same choices to make today if you're going to be in an interrelationship with black people. I don't know, I can't speak to interracial relationships with other people of color, but what I find is that the European immigrant women are really tapping into this um black community, right? They're like, we're tapping into the pro blackness. We want to be advocating for the freedom, and we want to be advocating for against the marginalization of black people to benefit ourselves because we are in these relationships, but also to benefit black people as well. And so the question still is before us as black people who enter these relationships, as white people enter these relationships, as non-white people, are you going to be about pro-Blackness? Are you gonna be about Black liberation in those relationships? Because the truth of the matter is you have to be. We're at the bottom of the racial hierarchy. Our outcomes are not great in a lot of places, but at the same time, precisely because our humanity, we're still not valued as fully humans. So you're coming into a relationship that structurally, the structure says, oh, you're not fully human. You need to be doing everything possible to show people that this person that you married is. That's
That
kind of how I
is
see it.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. Just like how you described how the immigrant women found more solidarity with
Mhm,
their Black partners in the Black community, and the US born white women were deciding that, they would like to use whiteness as a proxy for power in a way. And I was
mhm.
also just like wondering if that could potentially be because like white US born white women had noticed all the destruction and havoc that Black people have endured in America due to slavery. And I was wondering if like that maybe informed why they decided to, go the opposite direction, where the European women, they have a whole different lens on race, where they don't
Right,
necessarily look at Black people as,
right.
formerly slaves, as
Yeah,
having been oppressed and discriminated upon. And maybe they are able to more like conceptualize that better because they're coming from a like outside
right,
perspective. So
right,
that's so
right.
interesting, seriously.
Right. So, right, the immigrant experience and being so in that time, you're still walking that fine line of
Yeah.
like, what kind of European white are you? What kind of
Yeah.
European immigrant? So, in some ways, they're experiencing that kind of discrimination that US
Hmm.
born white women are not experiencing and recognizing, like, and as women, right? So, as white women, it's not like they have all this female power, right? They're tied into the patriarchy. And so being tied to whiteness also gives them power as women because they don't have that either. So again, this intersection really matters for the kinds of decisions people end up making. It's not that we can't hold people accountable, but it helps us to really have more nuanced views of what people are doing and the attitudes that they have in certain situations.
Yeah, no, and that like definitely I think ties into, the women's suffrage movement too, where there were white feminists on the front, of the movement, at least from what we see in the history books and things, the mainstream media. But there were Black women that had been fighting the whole time that were left in the back. And they were never incorporated because those white women knew that if we incorporate these Black women, that's going to, bring equality for everyone. And they didn't necessarily want that. They wanted
Right.
equality for white women and for
Hmm.
whiteness. And they knew that if we bring Black people in, that's going to take longer.
Right. And so the
Yeah.
question again is always for allyship, for accomplishment, whatever it is, what are you willing to give up for Black
Yeah.
humanity? But
Yeah.
the thing is that Black humanity, uplifting Black humanity is always going to uplift everyone. Black women
Yep.
know this very, very, very well. So if you're prioritizing Black humanity and improving Black humanity, you will inevitably raise the level for everyone. This is the fortunate and unfortunate reality, but we still are acting like this is not the case, but this is the case. But people have something to gain from their racial power, from white supremacy. So they're not willing to necessarily accept that the elevation, the improvement of Black humanity is going to help them. They see it as a zero sum game.
Yeah. It comes down to what are white people willing to sacrifice.
Mhm.
They have to use their own positionality in order to uplift Black people. And a lot of times they're just not willing to do it. And so, yeah, I think that's, yeah, just so important, especially with what you talked about with the current, environment that we're living in right now, where we're starting to see that people are feeling more emboldened in their racism and that they're not willing to, pursue liberation and what that entails. And yeah, it's daunting for sure, to say the least.
It's daunting, but I always want Black people to take care of themselves, right?
Yeah,
Whatever that looks like for you. These are not, we didn't start these problems. All
right.
right. Let the people that start these problems, your priority is your Black humanity.
Yep. Racism is everyone's problem to address, especially white people that created it. And so I just don't understand how a lot of, people are not seeing that. Or maybe they are and we're just not hearing about it. But hopefully they begin to wake up.
As long as Black people protect your peace, protect your
Yep.
humanity, elevate yourself.
I love
Don't
that.
worry about anybody else because they need to take care of themselves. But as long
Yeah.
as we continue to uphold our humanity, and in that way, there's no reason, and I think Black people know this, in upholding our humanity, we don't need to demean anybody's humanity. We've never
Yeah.
been that group of people.
Mhm.
and we're not going to be that group of people. And the thing is, the more we dig into our humanity, the more we're going to be seeing that other people's humanity is just as important and just as important to fight for, but we fight in our own time, in our own way, on our own terms.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think just pivoting a little bit, you had the opportunity to chat with Laverne Cox on her podcast in 2020. What did you find to be significant about this moment in your career? Such a great opportunity.
Yes, I found it to be just so wild to just be, because I was early in my career. So I had graduated from my program in May of 2020. So I was fresh out of graduate school. I did the interview in November of 2020. So this is kind of like, it felt like I was having like a, this sounds terrible, a senior moment, because this feels like the kind of exposure you have when you're more seasoned. And like I had just finished graduate school. I was just starting my first job. So I was just so inspired and really flattered. And she was such an amazing host. Like, she went deep into the dissertation. I was like, "Oh, you went into my methods? I don't even think I look at my methods that
Yeah,
much."
she had the facts. I was like, wow, she went into it deeply,
She
definitely.
really did. I can say that it was inspiring, humbling, and also in the past few years I've really been thinking maybe this is something, maybe we thought, maybe I thought it was out there, but maybe it's a topic that is not actually as out there as I thought, right? Like if Laverne Cox is interviewing me, maybe it's actually something that does need to be talked about and hasn't, it doesn't feel like it's already been in our consciousness. It's already out there in the mainstream. Again, Avril Clark's already been doing the work, but we clearly have not been reading her book. And so it made me think maybe there's a space for me. There's work for me out here to do, but it also made me think this is the work I want to be doing. I want to be elevating Black women's stories. And what an amazing privilege to do that with an exceptionally brilliant, generous, kind woman, Black woman. So for me, it was just, I don't know how I can explain it. I was over the moon. And definitely over the moon because I was just like, I'm an itty bitty faculty member. Like I'm like a cute little postgraduate student. Like, who am I? And yet she was just so kind and yeah, I don't even think I have words for it other than like I am so blessed and privileged to be doing this work, right? And out of everything, I want Black women to know that they are so blessed and privileged to be who they are, especially because we live in a place that says that we're not. And I saw that as a great, what a great platform to get to spread that message, and with a really great person to do that with.
What a cool opportunity. Yeah, I really loved the conversation. And I bet that was just like kind of shocking to be able to be sitting across from Laverne, especially after you just finished your PhD. Like, I mean, yeah, that's great. And especially just being able to like platform your work. And the other women that came before you, like you said, I hadn't heard of those women that you mentioned, the other scholars. And so
Mhm.
I plan on looking into their work and reading the
Yes,
book that you mentioned. So
yes.
that's so great. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem. Yeah, and I wanna do that. I believe in citing Black women all
Yeah.
day, every day.
Yes, me too. That's amazing. And then moving forward, for Black women aspiring to pursue a PhD, what is the most critical piece of advice you would like to offer them based on your experience?
Study what you wanna study, right? A lot of people will say, "Oh, that's not sociological, that's me search." Well, it's not my fault you created a racially gendered stratified society, so I don't know what to tell you. Remember standpoint theory. Your experience is important. Other Black women's experience is important. So study what you wanna study, craft it in a way that makes it palatable for academics, but don't ever lose sight of why you're doing what it is you want to do and why it's important to you. And form a village. Get a village of whoever you trust, right? If that's all Black women, great. If it's a Black therapist, great. But be in a village that sees you for who you are and not what you can produce.
That's such valuable advice. And I was going to ask you, this is a pretty, I feel like, niche area of research, at least when you were talking about like standpoint theory and you were looking specifically at Black women's experiences dating. Did you face any pushback from those that were like evaluating your work, or, did you find any challenges along the way, or were people kind of just like, oh, this is great, keep going?
Yeah, I was really lucky because I was intentional about who I let work with me, which sounds
Okay.
so that sounds so egotistical, but it was a
No,
matter of
makes sense.
self-protection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very I had these friends in graduate school. There were two white women who would always give me I called them my graduate school godmothers. They would always give me the tea on everybody, and like they were very clear about like if this is what you want to do, make sure you're cultivating these relationships with the kinds of people that see this work as important. That's why Dorothy Roberts was one of my committee members for my dissertation. It's why Chenua Flippin was a committee member. Well, they were both co-chairs on my dissertation chair because I chose scholars that understood that what I was doing was important to me. And even though they're studying these larger things that we think are like more important, they felt like this was still important. So I didn't win, like I haven't won like best article prize or this, I
But
haven't
you
won any
might
like
soon,
right. I haven't won any
eventually.
yeah, I haven't won any of those scholarly prizes. But again, I have been so privileged to get to do this kind of work, right? This is the work right here where hopefully other Black people are going to get to listen to this and feel inspired and encouraged and get to step into who they are every day. So, like, yes, I may not have those other accolades, but this is the whole point. I don't want my dissertation sitting in a dark somewhere, people are not reading it. So if this is the platform that I've had the opportunity to spread the word, then that's been great. So for me, I think it's really about cultivating relationships with people who can help you craft what you want to do into the kind of research you want to do. Because I think everything is researchable. It just strategically, you want to be able to speak the language to the people that are going to be evaluating the work, and just having the skill set and the people around you that believe in the work, but also believe in making it palatable to academics is also key.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to that. And it's clear that you've dedicated a lot of time and energy into your research and your passion. And we were wondering, what are a few ways that you choose to recharge outside of work?
Well, I was thinking about this question and I was like, "Ooh, Sarah, you're so bougie, but I'm totally gonna say this." Okay, so I just went on this trip with all Black women to Tanzania and Zanzibar. So if I had like oogles and oogles of money, that's how I would recharge. I would just go African continent hopping with Black women. That's what I would do. Oh, like
That's
it's
so
like
iconic. I love it.
that's what
Yes.
I would do. So that's the one thing that I've done that I'm just like, okay, I need to recreate it that. But more cheaper things that I like doing, I like napping. Sleeping is absolutely one of my favorite hobbies in the whole wide world. I'm a mom of two, so anytime I can like sneak away and take a little nap, I love that. Watching reality show while doing laundry just makes my day. I love the messiness of other people's lives. I don't like my life to be messy, but I love to watch other people's messy lives. I love going out to eat with my husband, just like eating and drinking and chatting. And I love doing day dates with my friends. So it's like, oh, let's go get our nails done at each lunch. It's very, very real housewives, but I love doing that. And just like let's hang out. Let's go to each other's house and eat and hang out and whatever. So that's the kind of stuff I do to recharge.
Those activities all sound so fun. And I've heard, I think there's like a group that does trips for Black women that travels. Is that how you found that experience, or did you just go on your own with your own friends?
Oh, no, so it's and, there are several groups that do this.
Okay.
OMR is the group that I went with. I think Girl Trek does. There are
Okay.
plenty of groups that offer, and there are co-ed groups too that
Oh,
do,
nice.
Black. So if you wanna go with other Black people, not just women. I don't
Yeah.
know if there are any male groups, but if there aren't, someone
Yeah.
needs to start that.
Right. No, that's so cool. I'm glad you
Yeah.
shout that out because I think our listeners may be interested in that too, especially ones that don't necessarily live in like predominantly Black areas, but maybe they want to
Exactly.
experience like global
Yeah.
travel with other Black people.
Yep.
So that's so
Yep.
cool.
And it's important too because the thing is we are still black wherever we go, right?
Yes.
So even in South Korea where we all love BTS, but
Yep.
you might roll in the club and they're not going to let you in the club because you're black. So we need to travel together as a
Yep.
way to connect with each other, but also to protect ourselves from that from that global
Blackness.
anti-blackness that you
Yeah.
people experience all the time when they're
Yeah.
traveling.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about, oh, sorry, Brad.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask about, you said you like watching reality shows and folding laundry. Do you have a favorite reality show or any like dating shows you recommend?
It's true. So because I do research on dating, I don't always like watching dating shows.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
will say I do like Love is Blind, but not all the time.
That's one of my favorite ones. I was
Yes.
going to say Love is Blind needs to get you on and you need to interview them at a reunion or
Yes,
something.
that would be so fun.
Yes,
Yes,
we're
that
going
would
to
be
put it
so
out in the
great.
universe
Yes,
now.
let's put it out of the universe. Love is Blind. And then I do like reality TV shows from other countries, right? So Dubai Bling probably is at the top of my list. Anything with South Africans, I don't care what the show is. If it has South Africans in it, I am going to watch it. So I just finished watching Love Never Lies. Apparently, it's been on for a long time, but then they had the South African version. I was there. They had a Ultimatum South Africa. I was there. Anything with South Africans in the reality TV show, I'm there. So those are my what's the word? I lose words all the time, but those are the things that I enjoy that keep me fresh, happy, messy.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I talk about this way too much, but we're on the same page when it comes to our bougie taste when it comes to travel, because that's exactly how I recharge. And I took a solo trip to South Africa and I loved it so much. And so I haven't thought to get into reality TV or shows from South Africa, but I'm gonna look into that now.
Hmm. Absolute just it's just as messy, but there's just this, I don't know how to explain it, this richness.
Elegance.
Yeah,
They
elegance,
were very elegant
richness.
out there. I loved
Oh, it's just,
it.
and yeah, and it's just like, and they're so real. Nobody's playing no fakety fake games. Like, so that's what I love about it.
That's actually hilarious. I forget I was watching some reality show and it was based in South Africa and I forget what it was, but it was like South African royalty or something and getting into their lives. So I'm gonna have to look up the show again. But
Ba-
yeah, it was pretty good.
Based in South Africa with South Africans. Oh, and I
Yes.
forgot my other show that I love, Young, Famous, and African. If you guys
That's the
haven't
one I
seen
think
that,
I watched.
oh
Yes.
my
And I think it
gosh.
was in South Africa, right?
Yes, yes, they
Yeah,
always
I
go
know
to
it
South
was
Africa. Oh yeah.
good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I'm like always waiting for like what.
Yeah.
And then I try to follow the gossip from the other countries. So I'm just
That's
like, okay,
hilarious.
what's happening with this person in Nigeria? Like what's going on
Yes.
with like us? Exactly.
Oh my gosh. No, that is hilarious. I'm definitely gonna watch it soon here. Great. Well,
You
I'm
is
so
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Please do, please do, please do. That's all I can say. And Brad, there just so you know, just in case you want to do more traveling, there is a group that is going to Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa next year. I'll email you the name of
Oh,
that group if and that's a co-ed group. So
Please
oh,
do, because I was just
that's
gonna
cool.
ask you, like, what other places do you recommend? Because I'm trying to do it again.
yeah, I want to go. So this was the first time back on the continent since I left Nigeria. So it was really kind of just profound for me. I left on Juneteenth, so that was like even more
Wow.
profound. I was traveling alone, no kids, no husband. Got to spend 10 days with all Black women. Like that's what recharging it is. Like I was like, recharging is a retreat with Black women. That's what that
Yeah.
is. But yeah, so I wanna go all over the continent now. That's where I want to be and then be doing it with Black women or Black people in general.
Oh yeah, me too. I went to South Africa solo, and I feel like it would be so cool and like a different experience to go with a group of people.
Yeah.
But I did my mingling. I actually met some people that I would consider friends now. So if I go back,
Awesome.
I have connects, and
That's
it's so
awesome.
funny because, like you were saying, like on the shows, they're so elegant there. Like, when I went to the clubs out there, they were playing Sexy Red, but everyone was dressed dapper. Like, I was like, okay. I was like, so y'all could get down, but you're very classy. I like it.
Listen. It's like it's the best dressed mess you'll ever see.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, please send us a link to the travel group. That would be
I
fun to
will.
plan in the future. So
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're at our last question, which is wild, and we went so far over time. I'm so sorry. We always
Okay.
do this. But our last question for you is one that we ask every single one of our guests, and it's just about how we orient ourselves to the diaspora, how Blackness has influenced our life paths, and not only our careers, but just like how we navigate the world. And so our question is, what does Blackness mean to you?
Blackness, I'm gonna circle back to the beginning. Blackness means to me Ubuntu. I am because you are. Um, that is what it means. That's where there's liberation, that's where there's peace, that's where there's love, that's where there's joy, that's where there's connection. For me, that's what Blackness is about. It's about it's about seeing Black people on the street and you don't really have to explain yourself. It's about you can be, I'm not in a Black sorority, but it's about being in a Black sorority, Black fraternity. Like it's just, I don't know. It's I am because you are. And we try to move in those ways as much as we can. Yes, there's capitalism, there's racism, but I see Black people trying to live that out as much as they can. And I want to be a person who's living that out as much as I can. So that's what Blackness means to me. I am because you are.
I love that so much. And that's, one of the ideas and the reasons why we started this podcast, because all of our collective experiences make us who we are. Our individual experiences make us who we are in the collective. You're an immigrant from Nigeria. Tiana was raised in a predominantly white family. I'm a Black queer man. And all these
Yeah.
different experiences make us who we are as a community. And, rather than dividing ourselves, we should celebrate and embrace our differences within the diaspora and within our own
Yes.
intersectionality.
Yep, exactly. And the thing is those challenges, like those challenges bring us together because we're Black, right? Black biracial, Black queer. The thread is Blackness, right? And so yeah, there are those differences, but that thread of Blackness is just as powerful because of the similarities and just as powerful because of the differences. But that Blackness is like, ooh, that thread I just think is so powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you mentioned, like, way at the beginning of the interview, you had said something about like how everyone you met at Princeton, the work they were doing was Black centric, and
Mhm.
that's how they decided that's a choice, I think, to show up in the
Mhm.
world. And you joked about like the incognito, like that's also a choice for
Yeah.
people to decide, I'm not going to center Blackness and who I
Yeah.
am and everything I do. And that's what we wanted to do here is center Blackness, bring
Mhm.
each other together and talk about
Yes.
how Blackness appears in everything that
Yes.
we do, and that it is a decision and we are, in solidarity coming closer together because of our Blackness. So
Yep.
thank you so much. This was really illuminating. Like, I loved this conversation with you. I feel that our listeners are going to hopefully love it. And I think it's going to be a really popular episode. So we just, again, appreciate your time. Hope you have a great rest of your week, get to do something fun. And yeah, we hope to be in touch again soon.
Yeah, thank you both so much. This was so wonderful. It felt like it was really relaxing and
Oh,
recharging.
good.
So thank you
Yay.
so much. And please keep doing this work that you're doing and
Thanks.
platforming our stories and our voices. And thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you. We really are.
All right. Well, have a good one.
All
Talk to
right.
you later.
Thank you
Bye.
so
Bye.
much. Keep in
No
touch.
problem. We for sure. For sure. Bye.
Bye. We deeply appreciate your support as we work to uplift the Black community and explore our unique experiences within the Black diaspora on Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana.
And Brad.
Thank you so much.